Imagine, if you will, those 3 a.m. thoughts about time, space, or the odd and unusual things. These are not your everyday topics. These curiosities about the world and us seem more fiction than fact. This is a journey of enlightenment on subjects that fascinate the mind. Our findings may not change your views or beliefs, but let us share what we have researched along the way. Buckle up as we show you what we've discovered down the rabbit hole.
Hey guys, welcome to What If Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm Will.
I'm Terry.
Today we are going to talk about the past and the present and the future. Let's talk about divination.
Let's. I like it.
So if you watched any, we'll say ancient television show, whether it's, Romans, Vikings, really anything in the past, you probably heard something about soothsayers. We also know today there are a lot of psychic mediums out there. Oracles are another name.
Yes.
They're all practitioners of the ritual and tradition of divination. Mm-hmm. So the Oxford Dictionary defines divination as the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown through supernatural means.
Yes. I actually, this is how good I am. I got the Wikipedia definition of it, which is interesting. It just says it comes from a Latin word that means to foresee, to predict, to prophesize, and it is called an occult practice.
If you've seen either of our other two episodes, then you already know occult really is just hidden or not easily obtained knowledge.
Yes. No woogie boogies.
So the Roman philosopher, we get a lot of knowledge from the Romans, the Greeks, so on and so forth.
Yes.
The Roman philosopher Cicero actually kind of laid out the different types of, we'll call them divination practitioners, mm-hmm. diviners, if you will.
Yes.
There are inspirational kinds of divination. Mm-hmm. They use like visions or dreams to divine.
Right. Try
to use divination or describe divination without using the word divine.
It is divine, actually.
Exactly. So types of people, practitioners, if you will, mm-hmm. that use like visions and dreams are your traditional oracles, right. or the seers. Mm-hmm. Prophets. Where have we heard that term before?
Yes, the prophet. It's used a lot. It's used a lot in our culture today, actually.
Typically, at least in ancient Greece, you see healing sanctuaries mm-hmm. that promote this sort of this form of divination, various dreams and visions, for that sort of thing. Right. They actually have a place that you go to with like all of the practitioners in it, essentially. The other forms, Cicero says he categorized, if you will, require they're skilled, like some training is required.
Right.
So, like astrology for one.
Right.
Something I know we're going to talk about, numerology, would
yes.
definitely be another one.
Mm-hmm.
These types of practitioners are more easily recognized as like various experts in their fields, like shamans.
Yes.
Are
yes.
a common term used for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ancient cultures with divination, I know, are very, and even the Nordic cultures with the Vikings and whatnot, they had oracles as well. They had people in their religious practices that they would go to, and basically sit down with them, and they would ask them stuff about their future, about decisions they needed to make, about upcoming battles they were going to have, how's it going to turn out, or if they had a sick loved one, were they going to survive their illness, whatever, and they really, it was a pillar of their beliefs. It really was. It was quite fascinating.
From what I understand, a lot of the Nordic culture, typically the oracles would be female.
Yes, a lot of them were. Mm-hmm.
Because females are the givers of life.
Yes, they are. This is true.
So that stands to reason.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
So I think one of probably the most popular in today's day and age methods of divination, whether you're looking to get information about the future or even look deeper into your past for more meaning, that sort of thing, is probably tarot.
Yes, I'm a fan.
Do you tarot often?
I do. I'm a really big nerd with YouTube tarot. Which are general readings, obviously.
Sure.
I have had a few in-person tarot readings in my life, and yeah, I haven't had they haven't been inaccurate. We'll say that. I've never had a tarot reading from anybody, and then none of it came true or none of it came to pass in some way, shape, or form. So I'm a fan. It's interesting. Not a practitioner myself, but I find it very interesting.
I feel like you've done way more research on tarot than what I have. So, I know the basics, right? Mm-hmm. Traditionally, there's a deck of 78 cards.
Right.
It actually, when you're reading or learning about tarot, it kind of reads like a Dungeons and Dragons manual.
Sort of, kind of, yeah.
They literally say, at least the major sources of information that I've come across, describe it as a traditional deck has 78 cards. There are 22 major arcana cards and 56 minor arcana cards.
Right.
Arcana is just a term that all of the D&D nerds out there are going to get because it's something we've learned since, back in the early 80s or 70s, depending on your age.
Yeah. I am not, just to clarify, not there's anything wrong with it. I'm not, Dungeons and Dragons isn't my thing, so I'm taking your word for it.
All right. I know there are 4 suits, just very similar to a standard deck of cards, right?
Yeah.
So there's the wands, the cups,
the pentacles,
also known as coins, depending.
Yes, depending, yeah.
And the swords.
Right. And they all correspond with the astrological signs as well.
Really?
They all correspond, for example, pentacles is for the earth signs, like you and I.
Okay.
We're both born, Will and I actually have the same birthday. We're not born the same year, but we both are born on September 9th, so we're both Virgos, we're both earth signs, and our sign in tarot would be the pentacles or the coins. That's what the earth signs are for, and I'm trying to remember now what the fire water.
That's actually kind of interesting. And we're going to dive into that, much like you told your story. I'll at some point tell my story.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's almost like it was written in the stars, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Actually.
Absolutely.
But that's when we get into numerology.
I'm going to point out something else about he and I and our birthdays a little later when we get into numerology here today. So it's going to be neat.
So I did learn and noted that wands is the element of fire.
Yes.
Normally associated with creativity, action, determination, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Cups is the element of water.
Yes.
And that is normally associated with emotional lives, relationships, spirituality.
Right.
Which makes a lot of sense, just logically speaking. Right? All of those things tend to be very flowing, ebb and flows, sort of.
Yes.
Much like water.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting.
And tides are controlled by the moon, and the moon is also associated with cycles and different cycles in life, different cycles in biology, different cycles in spiritual world, controls water. So, moon is a very emotional thing for a lot of people. We have the phrase lunatic, which comes from, they're allegedly more people that are, I don't even know if we call them lunatics anymore, but back in the day when,
I'm pretty sure that's not PG nowadays.
yeah, basically, they're they're more active. Their psychosis is more active during a full moon or a full lunar cycle. So that's where the term comes from, lunatic. So, yeah.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Swords is the element of air.
Yes.
Tends to be associated with power, change, or conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And then we already talked about pentacles or coins.
Yes. Yes.
So, go ahead and jump in. What kind of information you have that I didn't already discover? Because I know you study this way more than I have.
Yeah, tarot to me has always been kind of fascinating. My great grandmother, Mary, she was born in Wales. She was actually, from what I understand, she was born literally not far from where Stonehenge stands today, which is in England, but it's not far from Wales. But she's an immigrant. She came here, and even though she was Christian, she used to read cards. She didn't read tarot cards. She actually read a deck of playing cards. She would read the regular, like you said, the 52 cards in a deck. And she was very good at it. And my grandmother, her daughter, and my mother, her granddaughter, were very kind of creeped out by her in a way, because my grandmother almost died giving birth to my mother. And she prophesized that. She saw that in the cards. And after that, she had this thing. She wouldn't read any more family members' cards. She wouldn't do it anymore. So I've been around it a lot. And like I said, I've had a few readings in my day, and very, very accurate. But as it pertains to the reading itself and the reader, it seems to me like because they're still reading cards and all that, the ones that have psychic abilities have a tendency to also use channeling in their practice, which is where they open themselves up. They get into, like, usually before the session, they'll get into some kind of meditative practice or something to get themselves to where they're an open channel to spirit. Some call it spirit, some call it, their spirit guides, or it's essentially the same, their higher self, whatever. It's essentially the same thing. And while they're reading the cards and they're shuffling and dealing them out and reading them to you and telling them, they're using what the cards actually mean in their actual, tutelage, or their actual, what they're taught to mean, what like this would, like, say the Ace of Wands means this and the Nine of Pentacles means that, or whatever. But there's also an intuitive part of it that they would also read, different decks. Some decks are really beautifully done artistically. Yes. And they'll see something in the background, and they'll say, they'll see that has something to do with it. Like if there's a nature scene and there's a duck or something, just randomly we'll say a duck, that duck might mean something to you. You know what I mean? And there's the intuitive part of it. And then every now and again, the ones that have psychic mediumship, they will get hits from their spirit guides or their spirit that'll tell them, okay, spirit wants me to tell you whatever it gets. So my experience with tarot is largely vast in that there are some people that don't consider themselves to have psychic mediumship abilities. There's a guy on YouTube named Rich Lopp who doesn't. He's actually he's like the dude that lives next door to you. You know what I mean? Like he's like your buddy's dad. He's not. You would never think this guy is a tarot reader, but he does tarot readings, and he's very down to earth. It's like I said, it's like having your buddy's dad read your tarot cards. It's the weirdest thing ever, but he's really good, and he's on there. And but then there's people that I follow, like Stargirl, the Practical Witch, who on YouTube, who is a psychic medium. She's also an astrologer, and she's very good as well. She connects with her spirit guides for her readings. Chloe Taylor is another one who connects with her spirit guides for reading. She's also a practicing witch. They're all across the board. And like you were saying before, all forms of divination kind of are linked to each other to a certain degree. Like, we're talking about tarot, but astrology bleeds into that because the 4 suits are also the representative of the 4 astrological signs.
Sure.
And believe it or not, there is a link to that, so I'm told, between the 4 the 4 elements of the ancient world: earth, wind, fire, water.
Right.
There's also a link between the actual directions: east, north, south, east, west. There's a link to that, and supposedly there are actual archangels that are linked in those directions too. Like there's Michael, Gabriel, Ariel, Uriel. They're linked to that somehow too.
Okay, I can see that.
It's all kind of linked together in divination, which is interesting. They all have their own little flavor, like tarot
Sure.
has their thing, but they're kind of all linked together. But my experience with tarot has been very much as far as experience. I have more experience maybe than I do actual research because I'm not a tarot reader. I don't read. I know a little bit about it. I know like how they do it, like I was just explaining before, but I'm not a psychic medium either, so I don't have that channeling ability that they have. But the cards in and of themselves is fascinating me because you do, as you do readings and get readings done, it's funny how like that card, even in general readings like you would get on YouTube,
Right.
you'll see a card that the reader doesn't understand because it's a general reading. They're reading for thousands of people, but that card might mean something to me. Like that's a number that keeps coming up. That's a number that I see all the time. That number means something to me, or that picture on the card means something to me, or the suit might mean something to me, or there's like oracle decks. I see that a lot.
Sure. So I don't think we want to dive too deep into this because really this is just
Yeah.
a general overview
Right.
of various types of divination.
Right.
But we'll definitely have to do another episode where we get really deep into it.
Sure.
One of the things I did want to talk about is sort of how tarot works.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand from the research that I've done, there's basically like three very basic methods,
Mm-hmm.
right? The one you talked about, people who do tarot that have sort of psychic abilities, whether they're cognitive, precognitive, what have you, and then can channel, right? Then the other ability is just someone who is very skilled in reading, I'll call them energy signatures,
Right.
right? And then there's the lay person, the you and I,
Right.
right? Someone who has studied tarot, has learned the card definitions, and has probably spent some serious time looking at their deck, right? And actually studying each card. And so, great, really short, like, I think it was a 30-minute video that you had told me about from Gem Goddess on YouTube.
Yes.
And it's just how to get started in tarot, like how to perform a tarot reading. And this, like, she does an excellent job of describing how to do it. I think where she falls short is kind of missing the science portion of it, which is kind of what we specialize in a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's definitely for the you and I type person if we wanted to start doing tarot readings.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And essentially, you, memorize the meaning of each card.
Right.
Right? They have a manual, so to speak,
Yeah. They usually
with
come with
each
a
deck
book. Yeah.
that tells you what the meanings, not so much the meaning of each card as the broad generalization. Like
Right.
this card could tell or is associated with, X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Right? And then something Gem Goddess talks about is don't go just by the book definitions, and this is where studying each card comes into play, because then you go by the pictures on the cards
Right.
themselves. And again, tarot decks, at least today, tarot decks are just amazing artwork. There's
Oh,
so
yeah.
many collectors.
Quite beautiful.
They
Yeah.
just collect tarot decks for the artwork. And
Yeah.
a lot of big name artists
Yes.
do
Yeah.
tarot decks.
There's a lot of people that literally make their living doing art, like artists. That's one of the way artists can make a living today.
Sure.
And make a fair amount of money is doing tarot decks. Yeah.
But so for the lay person, the I hate to say this because I feel like it makes it sound terrible, but I would say like the carnival readers.
Yeah.
Not to say that everyone who sets up a tarot reading booth at a carnival isn't well skilled,
sure.
but like it's something you or I could do, and you're kind of like a police detective, right? So there is a methodology to shuffling the cards, having the read I'm in IT, so I'll call them the end user.
Yeah.
Draw the cards, or even you as the reader could draw the cards, right? And as you turn them over so that they can see them, you're kind of like looking for cues, whether it's an expression, a body movement, whatever, and then you're interpreting that.
Right.
Is it the number that did it? Is it the picture that did it? And you can use the base definition from the manual of that particular card as a starting point.
Right.
And then you interpret their response to seeing that, as well as the actual picture, and obviously the numbers and so on all come into play.
Well, that's kind of the human the intuition part of it, right?
Sure.
Like you like when you're having a conversation with somebody, something as simple as that. Somebody maybe never met before, you're having a conversation with them and you could tell they're not digging what you're talking about or what you just said or something like that. They might not come out and say, well, hey, you know what, like, yeah, I didn't like what you just said, but they'll be like, oh, right, okay. And you're like, all right, well, they're not, you know what I mean? Like, that's where that comes in.
Right. Yeah, where was I going? Well, I was going somewhere.
I'm sorry.
With that,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You sidetracked me.
I'm terribly sorry. You're talking about
the three methods of reading.
Yes,
the psychic abilities, and then people who are really skilled in reading energy signatures.
Yes.
Which is another episode that we're going to do.
Yes.
Definitely come back for that, because that is something you can teach yourself to do.
Yes.
It takes a lot of time, and but you can do it, right?
Sure.
And so then you're combining two methods, right? You're combining that intuitiveness, that reading of body language. If you've ever taken any kind of body language course, it would certainly help you in your tarot reading abilities. And then if you've learned to or were taught reading energy signatures, I don't know if you know this. If you don't, you should go back and watch our second episode about the power of intent, where we actually talk about your body gives off energy signatures, energy fields, if you will. And so if you're able to train your body, your eyes more specifically, as well as, I would go so far as to say, your heart and your gut, to not only see but feel what the other person is putting out there.
Yeah.
You can combine that with their body language, their facial expressions, and then again, going back to the actual cards, combine all of those to give the appropriate reading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The energy field around the body has been, we mentioned this in our previous episode as well, the power of intention. It's something that the ancient cultures that have come way before us have known about and talked about, and even modern cultures. Eastern medicine even identifies the energy body. The Hindus call it prana. We're one of the few cultures on the planet that don't have a word for it. Now I guess the most common word that would be used in our culture today would be the spiritual or the mystic people or whatever would call it an aura.
Yeah. I believe that is the common terminology.
And that is a form of divination too. Not one that I am prepared for today, folks, but there is people who read auras as well. And
Sure.
They do that. But that's probably similar to energy reading, I would think.
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be very similar.
Yeah.
Since you brought it up, we'll just touch on that. And I mean, we are going to very light touch it.
Just the grays.
Again, reading somebody's aura, just like reading an energy signature, reading somebody's energy is different than reading an aura, because reading an energy is more of a feeling than it is a vision thing.
Right.
reading someone's aura, not that it doesn't have feeling, but you can, again, train yourself to see it, so to speak.
Yes.
And for those of you
I've done
science nerds out there, you're really just picking up on someone else's energy field and training your brain to interpret that as a color, so to speak.
Yes. There actually is I've tried this too, and it's kind of, it does work. It's a bit time consuming, but one of the ways you could try to see auras is one of the techniques that I've learned is that if you just take the palm of your hand, and if you have a solid colored wall in your house, they say white is best, but if you have a solid color house and you just hold your palm up to it and you just stare at your palm, just stare at it, after a few minutes you'll start to see like some kind of weird, like if you see like heat coming off of a hot highway or something, you'll start to see that sort of around your hand. Now, can I see that all the time? No, you got to really focus and stare at it. And can I see colors or whatever? No, I can't
feel
do
like
that.
that's like meditation.
Yeah, you just got to practice it and do it every day and put time into it. And you know, maybe one day I'll put that time into it and I'll let you know. Not today, but yeah, it is one of the techniques. I believe the Gem Goddess, I got that from her actually, I think, in one of her videos. We're dropping names here today, guys. I don't know if that's cool or not, but we're doing it. And you know, but the Gem Goddess is one of them. And of course, I think I already dropped Chloe Taylor and Stargirl and a few more we're gonna drop. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like as we talked about in our What We Do episode, you know, we do throw out a lot of names of people who have done the research, have written books, or do videos, or that sort of thing. And some people just, we are catering to the people that either don't want to or don't have the time to go out and do all that research, and they just want to, you know, listen to their podcast on the way to work, or maybe on their lunch break, they're watching us on YouTube.
Yeah. And you know what? The people we bring up too, they have made it their life's work to do this stuff that we're talking about. This is what they do. I mean, they're experts for a reason. This is what they do. This isn't, you know, a hobbyist thing for them. You know, Greg Braden, that's his job. That's what he does. He travels all around the world and researches all this stuff. Joe Dispenza's the same way. Bruce Lipton, I'm going to drop him because I feel like I need to. I was just talking to you the other day about it. I know a little bit about him. I have done some reading of his. I want to get more into it because he's a really, really great doctor and a great researcher, and he's got a lot of good stuff. So if you can, check all these people out if you have the time to do so.
Awesome. Let's circle back to, because I know you and I have talked a lot off air, I guess is the proper terminology, about numerology, and you had brought it up. So how does that work?
Numerology is something I stumbled upon kind of accidentally. I feel like we're going to do an episode on this someday, synchronicity. And synchronicity can exist in many forms. But for me, a few years back, how I kind of went down these rabbit holes is I started seeing numbers over and over again. And by over and over again, folks, I don't mean I'd see them 2 or 3 times a day. I'd see them 50, 60 times a day. The same ones all over the place on license plates, road numbers, the clock. I work with a lot of high-tech equipment that measures voltage and all that, and these numbers would keep popping up in the voltage and stuff. Like I would read and see all day, not read, but see. And and after, this is how like egregiously not into this this went on for a year before I actually said to my wife, I said, you know, I keep seeing this one, and it was one particular number, really. It was number 333, which those of you that are into angel numbers or numerology, you'll know that's they call it the Christ consciousness number. It's a big number in the spiritual community. And I said to my wife, I said, I've been seeing this number 333 every day for over a year. And she goes, well, like what? Like you just see it? I told her, I said, no, I see it like 50, 60 times a day. It's really kind of weird. And she said to me, this is like the most duh moment of my life. She goes to me, well, did you Google it? And I'm like,
that's how you get information.
Well, sure.
Well, just Google.
Why didn't I think of that, right? Google knows everything. So I did, and it took me down a bunch of rabbit holes, but one of them was this one, numerology. And numerology has given me a lot of good information about this and a lot of other stuff too. So I'm gonna first drop 2 people on YouTube that were instrumental in really helping me understand numerology, and that's Carmen, who has a channel called Stars Align with Carmen. Please check her out. She'll show you how to do your numerology chart. She'll show you what different things mean, how to use it for divination, how to use it to figure out more stuff about you personally. Crazy accurate, crazy cool, and I think it's awesome. I think she's awesome. And another one, her name is Bridget, but she's recently changed her name and her channel name to Be Wise, and it's spelled Beeyse. So it's kind of like a weird thing, but it's called Be Wise. She's really good with numerology as well, and she can help you with your chart and any questions. And she also uses it for divination, and I believe she also has a little bit of an astrology background as well. But to go back to what we're talking about here with numerology, it's kind of like astrology in the sense that you have a chart. You know, astrologers do charts and stuff. You have a chart, and it was actually, I can't get any solid information on this. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right place. But from what I understand, Pythagoras, the Greek mathematician, had a hand in its inception. And they use Pythagorean models and different formulas that he used in his own mathematical practices to figure out a lot of your chart. So Pythagoras is a big, I don't know if you would call him the inventor or the creator of it, but a lot of his mathematical theories that are still used in geometry and in modern math today
Sure.
are used in numerology. So there is a 3D earthly mathematical grounding in numerology. And you and I were talking about this, just a little quick thing about numerology. Will and I, we were born on September 9th, which is 9/9. So 9 is our birthday number in
Right.
numerology, okay, what they would call it. 9 is the most interesting number to me because if you take any number and add it to the number 9, the answer you get will reduce back down to the number that you added to. To me, that's something I would have loved to have known that when I was in elementary school. Like if you take 9 plus 4, for example, that's 13. Well, what's 1 plus 3 and 13? 4, the same number you added it to. Now, if you multiply something by 9, you get, it reduces back down to 9. No matter what it is, you take 9 times 3, that's 27. 2 plus 7 is 9. You know, 9 times 6, 54. 5 plus 4 is 9, no matter what. That's interesting to me. Like, I never knew that. Like,
I feel like my math grades would have been way better if I'd have learned that in
yeah,
school.
like, teach your little kids that. It's a little trick. It's neat. But it's cool. But, so what numerology does is it uses numbers for purposes of divination in your life, things in your life. And there's a Pythagorean formula. You can get it either online. If you Google it, they'll give you this Pythagorean formula where you take your name and different letters of your name, and they correspond with a number, and you can use that number as part of your chart. Once again, these people I mentioned before, they can help you do that. It's real easy. I have mine, all my stuff right here, and I use it a lot when I watch it to learn stuff. But the one of the most significant numbers in divination and numerology is what they call your life path number. And this is really, really easy to figure out. Okay, you would take your birth date, okay, the month, the day, and the year, the full year, the 4-digit year.
Sure.
Okay, and like say for me, we'll use mine, okay. I was born on September 9th, 1975. I'm old, okay. And if you break that down, 9 doesn't reduce. They talk about reduction. What reduction means is if you have a 2-digit number, you just add those 2 numbers together until you get a single number. That's how you get it. So 9's already a single number. And my birthday, 9, is also already a single number. So we got 1975. Now, when you add all those together and you break them down to a single digit, you get a 4, okay? Now, 9 plus 9 is 18 plus 4 is 22. 22 is a mastered number. And in numerology, there are 3 master numbers. There's 11, 22, and 33. These are numbers that are significant to your life path and your life purpose and why you're allegedly here on the planet, what you're here for. Now, number 22 is the master builder number, okay? Now, according to the lore of this, the number 22s, you never reduce master numbers either. Master numbers always stay double digit.
Okay.
Okay, I almost forgot about that. But what number 22 is the master builder, meaning the 11s are the ones that are supposed to tear this thing all down. All the corruption, all the crazy in the world, the war, the corruption, all the stuff that we as the public have a great discord with. The people that were born with the 11s are supposed to dispatch that, tear it down. Not in a violent way, but they're supposed to dispatch that and bring peace and all that to the world. The 22s, like me, are said to be the ones who rebuild that. And the 33s, they're like the next generation that will come about, and
So they'll maintain. So to speak?
I suppose, yeah. I guess that's the word you would use for it. I took the liberty of doing yours.
Okay.
Now keep in mind, we're both 9/9. He was born 7 years later. He is actually a master number 11. And I am a 22. So you got to rip it down, and I'm going to rebuild it, which is kind of odd because I'm more of the punk rock guy to tear it down, and you're more of the guy who fixes stuff. So you would be more...
I mean, you're not wrong.
No, but it's kind of interesting. To me, it's interesting. But that's one aspect. There's a bunch of numbers in your chart. There are your expression numbers, your soul's urge number, birthday number we talked about, your personality number, your inner dreams number, your destiny number, your maturity number. There are challenge numbers in your life. There's pinnacle numbers. All these, as I said before, you could either go online, Google, and that you can get the Pythagorean formulas that they use to figure this stuff out, or you can go to Align with Carmen, Stars Align with Carmen, on YouTube, or Beewise, Beeyse, and they can help you out with that. They have tons of videos, and they're very good at what they do. So, that's how I got into numerology, and that's what numerology essentially is. It uses numbers to divine your current situation, your past, present situation as well. And once again, energy, these numbers are also carry energy that a lot of these people that are in more depth and knowledge of it than I am can tell you about that. I always tell Will all the time, me and Will are big Star Wars fans, and I always go back to that scene in The Empire Strikes Back when Yoda tells Will when they're on Dagobah, and Will sees that cave that has the dark side of the Force in it, and he feels it, and he says to him, what's in there? And Yoda says to him, only what you take with you. So he took his lightsaber in there with him, so guess what? He had to use his lightsaber and fight that manifestation of Darth Vader in there. I feel like that's a big part of it too. I feel like that's a big thing. When you show up for a divination, like you said, you're going to read energy, and whatever you bring in there with you, it's going to stick out. They're going to see it. Anybody who's, good at what they do anyway is going to see it and bring it out. I think we said it in a previous video too. I equate a lot of stuff with Jedis, so we're all Jedis, right?
Yeah, we're all Jedis.
That should be on a T-shirt or something.
I mean, we kind of are.
Yeah, kind of.
But
yeah. So that's my in a nutshell, in a very brief nutshell, that's my experience and my knowledge with numerology. Is there anything else you'd like to know? Right.
you know what? I honestly think that's going to be really good for this brief overview.
Okay.
I feel like we could probably dive into that a whole lot deeper.
Oh, God, yeah. Any of this.
And maybe we'll do that in the future.
Well, sure. Why not?
I think we should... I kind of want to jump into... I know I said in the beginning that Taro is probably the most well-known or most popular.
Sure.
But I had just had this thought. Long before... I don't want to say long before Taro got popular, but it's certainly become more popular in recent years. Mm-hmm. Something we never probably thought about that has been very popular in this country for decades. Astrology.
Yes, huge.
Which is, I'll admit, I don't know a ton about it, but I know enough to be dangerous. It's sort of a combination of all of them.
Yeah, they're all connected. As I think the one common thread you'll see perhaps in our videos is that you and I are kind of of the understanding that everything is kind of connected. But yes, they are. They're kind of all offshoots, and they all work together. I don't know if that's coincidence. Not that I necessarily believe in that, but I don't know if that's coincidence or it was by design or whatever. But as we were saying in tarot, the four suits are correlating with
the elements,
and
their associations are
right.
logical associations, really.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it's all connected. But astrology has a vein through all of this too, as you said. Now, as you said, I know enough about astrology to be dangerous. I'm not completely ignorant of it. I have a fair amount of knowledge about it. Astrology to me is I'm not a big astrology. Like I've never had my chart done. I know I'm a Virgo, and I know there's a couple different types of astrology. There's the Vedic astrology, which is not the one that the populace is really know. Where you're like, for example, we're into tropical astrology, which is we're Virgos in tropical astrology.
Okay.
But in Vedic or sidereal is another name for it, astrology, you and I would be Leos. Everything kind of shifts a season.
Okay.
For that. It's different. I know a lot. There's different people that are into the tropical astrology, which is the most popular one, and there's the sidereal or Vedic or whatever astrology that's a little bit different, I guess. I don't know very much about that. But astrology does have a common thread through everything, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that I do have some belief that the astrological realm, the stars, if you will, the planets, the satellites, whatever, I would be remiss if I didn't think that they have some influence on the day-to-day. But I've had me being a Virgo, I've had astrological readings, and some of it is right on, and some of it I go, what? We're Virgos. Now, I don't know about you in your personal life, how you are necessarily. I know you very well, but I don't live with them or hang, we don't hang every day or whatever. But like for me, like Virgos are supposed to be really like anal in particular with organization. That is so not me. Wherever I set something down, I don't have to, oh, that has to go here and that has to go there and this has to go in this file and that has to go. Basically, I'll put it there and I'll find it again. I'll just make note. Okay, it's there. And I am not organized, not anally organized anyway. Like where I'm like, oh my God, it has to be here. And I'm just not like that. So
I feel like I've got some of both.
Right. I mean,
And
there's a little bit of that.
You guys can't see the studio here, but I do have everything organized on the desk so that one, it's out of frame. And two, all of the wires are ran cleanly. They're not tangled, so on. But at the same time, if I put something down, I like to say that I've got a flat surface syndrome. If there's a flat surface, something needs to be on it. And it doesn't matter how much stuff winds up on that flat surface. If I put it there, I know where it's at.
Yeah.
Like there's not a drawer for everything.
Organized chaos.
I know where it's at.
Organized chaos. That's what I call it. It's like you look at it and you go, people come over and they go, how the hell do you find anything in here? And like, you're like, what do you mean? I know everything.
Yeah, there it is.
It's right there. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's weird because amongst all that chaos, if something is out of that chaos, you know it right away. You're like, where the hell's my, it's just gone, So I guess in a way, like you said, there is organization in there, but it's not to the extent that, like, say, the average organized person would have it. I mean,
Right.
Organized people typically like to have things very neat and in order.
But, along those lines, I feel like, again, I know enough about astrology to be dangerous.
Yes.
I've not studied astrology intensely.
No.
By any means.
Mm-hmm. No, me neither.
I feel like, with most minute evidence possible, that that whole organization thing, like Virgos are supposed to be anal retentive about organization.
Yeah.
Maybe more of the genericized version of it.
Mm-hmm.
What you get in the newspaper every Sunday.
Yeah.
Versus, the experts in astrology
Well, yeah.
would probably beg to differ on that. Maybe not drastically.
I made an attempt about a year ago because there's tons of online stuff, and Stargirl as well, who we mentioned a few times. She actually has some links in her YouTube channel that she uses if you want to go do your chart. But the information you actually need to get an accurate chart, most people don't. I don't have it on hand directly. Like, you need not only the day, the month you were born, and the year.
Time.
You need to know when you were born, the exact minute. To have an accurate reading, you need to know the exact minute. I'm not sure what my exact minute is. I asked my mother. She's like, I think you were born at like 4 in the afternoon. It's like, apparently my mother wasn't watching the clock when she was giving birth to me. So,
I mean, it makes sense, though, if you think about it. So we, again, talked about this in a previous episode about how once something is connected, it's always connected through an energy field. Right? So running on the Big Bang Theory, not the TV show, but the theory of how the universe was formed.
Yes.
Right? That means everything in existence was at one point in time connected. Sure. Thus, it is, regardless of the distance between each particle, it's still connected.
Exactly.
Right? So to know exactly what time you were born is going to bring you into existence in a field of energy that is tied to a number of astrological bodies.
Right.
Various planets and stars and so on.
And if they were in retrograde or whatever.
Exactly.
Right.
Which I don't want to say like effect, not so much, effect's not the right word. They don't have a huge effect on how your day goes, but they certainly have an influence.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would agree with that 100%. I think that, like I said, I'm not going to say there's no effect, because there is. I'll be honest with you. Personal experience. I found that now that I pay attention to it, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have paid attention to it as much because I wasn't, I guess.
As interested.
I wasn't aware, we'll say that. But yeah, like things like full moons have a big effect. I've noticed that, like, for me personally, that's another thing too. I think a lot of divination is very personal, of your own energy, of your own understanding, of your own. I
mean, it very much is.
Yeah, and certain people are going to have certain experiences with it, and certain people are going to have completely different ones. It's like everything else in life, you know what I mean? It's very much, it's like we were talking about in a previous episode about medicine, what is a general overview. Like, for example, you take something like aspirin, any doctor will tell you, oh, take aspirin, for this, that, whatever. I can't take aspirin. I'm allergic to it. So, I'm the exception, not the rule.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of like that old adage, what'll save my life will end yours. It's sort of like that, and not to such a dramatic extreme with divination, but it's a very personal, individualized thing, I think. And for me, full moons, I have a tendency to have much more things like manifest. I'm sure we're going to do a podcast about manifestation.
Yeah.
As well. I find that during a full moon, by accident, it seems like my thoughts and ideas and feelings manifest a bit more intensely and quick. That could just be my perception of it, but it seems like like a lot of times I won't even pay attention. Oh yeah, or I'll forget. Yeah, it's full moon tonight or whatever. And it'll be in the afternoon. And I'll be thinking, man, I could really use this, or man, I could really go for this or whatever. And it just
so that's what
shows
I meant
up.
When I said just the date, not only the date you were born, but the specific time.
Sure. Yeah.
It brings you into the terrestrial, the earthly existence in a particular, we'll call it frequency or phase of an energy field that's tied to the astrological bodies.
Yeah.
Right? And then, so to go back to your example, like during a full moon, you find manifestation happens faster for you. And again, for those of you really interested in manifestation, we will definitely be doing another episode on that. But
definitely,
I feel like that that energy frequency or phase, if you will, during a full moon, it puts you in a better headspace. Your personal energy frequency is probably aligning to the universe more closely during a full moon.
Could be, yeah.
Than other times, which is probably why you find it easier to to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for someone else, it could just like screw them all up, and you hear about it a lot, and you see it right when you're people just run around. I say like a bunch of crazies when they go
Lunatics.
to the store or whatever. Yeah, like lunatics. And everybody, your first thing is like, why is it so crazy today? Is there a full moon? Right?
Yeah. No, it's a
where
thing.
some people, full moons do great things for. The opposite is also true.
Sure. Like I said, I would agree with your statement that, it has an influence, but to the varying degree, what is it? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I would agree with that. I think that's accurate.
The astrology experts would definitely be able to tell you that.
Yes, which we are not. We're enthusiasts, not experts. Yeah. So astrology. I don't know if I got anything more other than that. I mean, that's kind of like my extent of what I would say. I will say this.
Go on.
Years ago, those of you who are from northeastern Pennsylvania, you know the Bloomsburg Fair. It's a big annual thing. Happens every year. Lots of people go to it. It's like a annual tradition. They all go down there and eat deep fried Oreos and, look at the sheep.
It's kind of like the Texas State Fair, but not near as large.
Yeah, and but it's a thing, and people travel for miles. I mean, we don't live a stone's throw away from it, but
right.
We all our family goes to it. Did you go to it this year?
I didn't make it there this year.
Yeah, I didn't either. But anyway, years ago, about 1999, 2000, I was there, and there were fortune tellers there, and as just as fun, I wasn't into it at the time. There was a palm reader there, and this lady read my palm, and she kind of creeped me the hell out. I won't lie. Not because she knew anything specific, but I didn't tell her anything about me. She knew a lot of stuff about my life, just by looking at the lines on my hands, and I went, "Wow, that's cool." And then I forgot about it and went back to my day. And when we were coming up on this episode for Divination, I thought, you know what? I'm going to dive a little bit into it and try to learn a little bit about it. And for those of you who find it interesting, by all means, start digging. Go out there and start digging. But it is a fascinating practice. It is also quite old. It's been around for centuries. Definitely centuries, maybe longer. I don't know. It is classified as a pseudoscience, and it is a practice of fortune telling through the study of the palm. It also has other names for it. It's also called chiromancy or chirology, and guess what? It's an occult practice.
No.
For real. Oogie boogie. And some things I did not, well, there's a lot of things I don't know about it. And the people that are reading, there is another, I'm name dropping like hell today, folks. Kat Anders, she's a lady on YouTube, and she does videos on palm reading. She's very knowledgeable, very informative. I would have had a broken hand if I took notes on everything she was talking about, just about the female left hand. Okay. There is apparently, there's obviously a difference. Your right hand shows your future, your left hand shows your past. That's how they read it.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
And, of course, we all know we have different lines. We have lifelines. We have all these different things and little offshoots. And it's just really amazing, like, how in-depth they can get with reading lines on your hands.
So it's definitely like a honed skill.
Oh, yes. Very. I can imagine it takes years to be very good at it and proficient at it, I would think.
Okay.
But the interesting thing to me is that men and women have different. It's not that it's odd that men and women have different hands, obviously, but what you would read for a woman's palms is different than what you would read for a man's. There's a disparaging difference, apparently, with that, which I was not aware of. And it's interesting because if you look at your palm, you have all these like big lines that we kind of all have. And there's like little, if you look closely, like really closely, there's like these little other lines that kind of go to it, and they all tie in to that as well. And like she was this lady that I was watching, Kat Anders, she was reading this other woman's hand, and she actually knew her age by her lifeline. Like she was taking a pen and like calculating birth, which starts like here on the side of your knuckle and goes all the way around to your palm like that. And she's like with a pen marking it. And she looked at her and she's like, "Oh, so you're 39 years old?" Yes. Like she just knew this girl was 39 years old by counting stuff on your hands. And she knew that she said, "Oh, okay, well, right here when you were about 13, I see something going on. Did you have any kind of injury or whatever?" And she did. She was in an accident. She had a real severe injury. And that was actually, she saw that in her hand.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so it's a physical record.
It is. It's like rings in a tree, I guess. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. You cut a tree and you count the rings, see how old it is, whatever. You know, similar to that. It's a very fascinating practice. I just wanted to touch on it here today because it is a popular practice, and it is kind of as you would say like a tongue-in-cheek carnival thing. You know what I mean? You know, it's been going on for years, and but it is true. Those are the basics of it right there. Left hand is your past. Your right hand is your future. Women and men's hands are different. You have main lines in your hands and offshoots of that. And the other name for it is chirology or chiromancy. And it is a occult practice that is also a pseudoscience. I love that word pseudoscience because I feel like that's a word people use when they just don't understand what the hell it is.
Yeah, pseudoscience is literally essentially what we call not real science.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's,
for you computer nerds out there, it makes more sense in a programming language from like the we'll call it the Linux realm, which is actually not Linux because it's based on something else. But pseudo in computer programming stands for super user do.
Huh.
And a super user is, in the programming world, essentially the god, if you will.
Right.
You know, can make anything happen.
Right.
Right. So, I'm not sure which, obviously, reality would have come before programming, but I do find it interesting that we refer to these things, the not real science, as pseudoscience, when it is kind of very supernatural, sort of.
Well, or if it's a new idea. You know,
right.
I have a feel, like, for example, I heard somebody refer to Greg Braden as his information as pseudoscience. I disagree with that vehemently. He is a scientist, number one. Number two, all of his findings are, let me put it this way, everything that he could back up with peer-reviewed science, he does, and most of his stuff, he does do that. Mm-hmm. And very rarely you'll see Greg come out and say, "Now, I can't say for sure why this is like that." Like he will preface his statements with, "I can't prove any of this," but it's one unbelievable coincidence.
Right. So I think palm reading, much like another pseudoscience that everybody claims is debunked, I question it.
Sure.
I believe it's called phrenology. I'm pretty sure that's the term. If it's not, feel free to correct me in the comments.
Yeah, any of this,
but it's essentially reading the bumps on your head.
Okay.
Similar to, I know you're a big music fan, similar to the old vinyl, Pits and Lands.
Yeah.
The practitioners, studiers of what I'm pretty sure is called phrenology would read the pits and lands of your scalp to not so much, I don't know you put it in a divination realm, because it's more of a personality thing, to tell you more so of if you're in a bad mood, they can tell you why.
Interesting.
Based on the pits and lands of your scalp.
It's interesting.
Really give you some insight into your own personality.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose if you add any kind of energy reading or even psychic ability into a skill like palm reading or phrenology or into the other forms of divination, it's going to change what you're doing, right? But
I think somebody like me who's had a lot of experience, not a lot, but a fair amount of experience with people with psychic abilities and people that are empathic and stuff. To me, that's like boosting. You know what I mean? You're getting a hit from something from the beyond and something that might have a greater understanding.
Paranormal,
right? A greater understanding of it. That's my opinion. I that's how I feel about it. Not everybody's gonna be into that or believe that or whatever. But that's to me, the second you, especially when it comes to divination, the second you bring somebody who has the ability to kind of tap into a resource that it has greater knowledge than the average person, that's just a bonus to me. That's a plus.
It's really terrible. Again, broad overview was the whole topic of this.
Right.
And we really only touched on the mainstream ones.
Right.
Right? We didn't even get into, reading of the tea leaves, reading of the bones.
Yeah, voodoo and all.
Oh, so many things. So
I have, probably because I have almost zero experience with that. All these other things I've kind of they've come into my life at a certain
right.
At a certain lexicon. But it's right now, I feel like the things like voodoo and tea leaf reading never did, other than things I saw in movies or something like that.
I feel like they're interesting enough that we should definitely maybe dive into those in a future episode.
I think so. I think that'd be cool.
But I think we're actually going to have to call it there. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you got some really good information. Maybe we piqued your interest in a few things.
And if you didn't think it was that great of an information, well, we gave a lot of names and a lot of resources that are much better than us and are much more. So if you want to learn more, please check them out.
If you prefer to hear it from us, stop back. We're definitely going to do future episodes where we really get down into the nuts and bolts,
100%.
So to speak.
Awesome.
So we will catch you next time.
See you later.
What If? Down the Rabbit Hole.
Yes, be good.
We've tried our best to provide all perspectives on these topics. If this type of content speaks to you or interests you, please subscribe to get notified when new episodes are released. Check out the show notes for all of the references discussed. Do your own research, formulate your own opinion. Join us next time on What If? Down the Rabbit Hole.